know what's the saddest financial trap most people fall into? They spend 40 years of their life working hard, waking up early, staying late, sacrificing weekends, and at the end of it all, they still don't have true financial freedom. Not because they didn't work hard enough, not because they weren't smart enough, but because nobody ever taught them the one fundamental rule that separates people who build wealth from people who just survive paycheck to paycheck. And that rule is this: stop working for money, make your money work for you. Now, I know that sounds like something you'd see on a motivational poster, but stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is not a motivational speech. This is a completely different way of looking at money, a framework, a system, the exact same mental model that wealthy people use to build assets that generate cash even while they're sleeping, even while they're on vacation, even while they're spending time with their family on a Sunday afternoon. Most people never learn this. And the reason they never learn it is because the entire system, school, society, conventional advice, was designed to turn you into a good employee, not a good investor, not a good wealth builder, a good employee, someone who trades time for money every single day until they're too old to trade anymore. So, today, we're going to break that pattern for good. Let's start with something that most people do without even thinking about it. Every month, when your salary comes in, what's the first thing you do? Most people pay their bills, buy groceries, maybe put a little bit into savings. And if there's anything left over, they call that having money. But here's the problem: that leftover money, the money sitting quietly in your savings account, it's not working. It's not growing. It's actually shrinking. Every single day, silently, invisibly, inflation is eating away at its purchasing power. The money you have today will buy you less next year than it does right now. And the year after that, even less. This is the trap. You feel safe because you can see the number in your bank account. But that number is lying to you. It looks stable, it looks secure. But in reality, your savings account is a slow leak in the bottom of your financial boat. You're not sinking fast enough to notice, but you are sinking. Now compare that to how wealthy people think about money. They don't see money as something to be saved. They see money as a tool, a resource, a raw material that needs to be put to work. They look at idle cash the same way a factory owner looks at a machine sitting unused in the corner. It's a waste. It's potential that isn't being realized. Wealthy people don't ask, "How do I keep my money safe?" They ask, "How do I put my money to work so it generates more money?" That shift in question changes everything. Let's start with something that most people do without even thinking about it. Every month, when your salary comes in, what's the first thing you do? Most people pay their bills, buy groceries, maybe put a little bit into savings. And if there's anything left over, they call that having money. But here's the problem: that leftover money, the money sitting quietly in your savings account, it's not working. It's not growing. It's actually shrinking. Every single day, silently, invisibly, inflation is eating away at its purchasing power. The money you have today will buy you less next year than it does right now. And the year after that, even less. This is the trap. You feel safe because you can see the number in your bank account. But that number is lying to you. It looks stable, it looks secure. But in reality, your savings account is a slow leak in the bottom of your financial boat. You're not sinking fast enough to notice, but you are sinking. Now compare that to how wealthy people think about money. They don't see money as something to be saved. They see money as a tool, a resource, a raw material that needs to be put to work. They look at idle cash the same way a factory owner looks at a machine sitting unused in the corner. It's a waste. It's potential that isn't being realized. Wealthy people don't ask, how do I keep my money safe? They ask, how do I put my money to work so it generates more money? That shift in question changes everything. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part that most people completely misunderstand. When wealthy people put their money to work, they're not gambling. They're not taking wild risks. They're building systems. Structured, calculated, well thought out systems where money flows in on a consistent, predictable basis without requiring their constant attention. Think about it this way. Imagine you own a vending machine. You place it in a busy office building. Every day, people buy snacks and drinks from that machine. The money flows in. You don't have to be there. You don't have to personally hand every person their chips. The machine works for you, around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while you sleep, while you eat, while you live your life. That's what an asset is. An asset is a vending machine, something you acquire, set up correctly, and then let it run, generating income on your behalf with minimal ongoing effort from you. The wealthy understand this at a deep level. Every rupiah, every dollar they have, they're constantly asking, can this become a vending machine for me? Can I deploy this capital in a way that generates returns I don't have to personally show up for? And the most powerful vending machines they've built, they fall into three main categories. The first is business ownership, not just starting a business and running it yourself. That's just creating a job for yourself with extra steps. I mean, building a business that operates as a system, where you have teams, processes, standard operating procedures, and structures in place that allow the business to function and generate profit even when you're not physically present. This is why wealthy business owners often own multiple businesses, not because they're superhuman and can manage everything at once, but because they've built each business as a machine with the right people, the right systems, the right processes. That runs largely on autopilot. And here's the kicker. When they build these businesses, they often don't use only their own money. They use leverage. They borrow from banks at a certain interest rate. Inject that capital into a business that generates returns significantly higher than the borrowing cost, and pocket the difference. They use the financial system as a tool to amplify their own capital, turning every dollar of their own money into $3, $4, $5 of deployed capital. While you're putting money into a savings account, earning 2% per year, they're deploying borrowed capital into businesses generating 20%, 30%, sometimes 50% returns. And they're doing it with the bank's money. That's not luck, that's strategy. The second category is physical assets, and specifically property. This is where the real long game happens. And the reason wealthy people love property so much comes down to three things that almost no other asset class can offer simultaneously. First, property generates passive income through rent. While they wait for the asset to appreciate in value over time, they're collecting monthly cash flow from tenants. The asset pays for itself, and then some. Second, property appreciates in value over time. Land supply is finite, human population keeps growing, the demand for housing, commercial space, and land will never disappear. It can slow down. It can dip temporarily. But over a long enough time horizon, well-located property almost always goes up in value. And wealthy people know this, so they buy locations strategically, targeting areas that are developing, areas that are becoming new economic centers, areas where infrastructure is coming before the rest of the market catches on. Third, property is a hedge against inflation. When the value of money goes down and prices go up, property prices adjust accordingly. The asset protects your purchasing power in a way that cash simply cannot. So, when you put all three of those together, monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and inflation protection, you understand why the wealthy consistently choose to lock their wealth in physical assets. It's not because property is glamorous, it's because it works. Reliably, consistently, over decades. Now, I want to talk about the leverage piece more specifically because this is where most people's minds completely break. And it's the key to understanding how wealthy people multiply their results. Most people think debt is dangerous. And they're right. Poorly managed debt is dangerous. But strategic debt? Intelligently deployed leverage? That's a completely different animal. Here's a simple example. Suppose you have $100,000 in capital. You could put it all into one property and control a $100,000 asset. Or you could use that $100,000 as down payments across multiple properties, borrowing the rest from banks. Suddenly, you're controlling $500,000 worth of real assets with the same $100,000 of your own money. Each of those properties generates rental income. Each of those properties appreciates in value over time, and your returns are calculated on the total asset value, not just on the capital you personally put in. This is called leverage. And it's the reason why people who start with the same income can end up in completely different financial positions 20 years later. One person saves their money in a bank account. The other deploys their money as down payments on assets and uses leverage to control a much larger portfolio. Same starting point, completely different outcome. The wealthy don't borrow to consume, they borrow to produce. That distinction is everything. So, let me bring this all together, because I want to make sure this actually lands for you in a practical way. The reason most people are stuck working for money their entire lives is not a lack of effort, it's a lack of system. They've never been shown how to build the machine. They've only ever been trained to be the machine, to show up, put in hours, and receive a wage in return. But the moment you shift your thinking, the moment you start seeing money not as something to be saved, but as something to be deployed, as capital that needs to be put to work in assets that generate returns, everything changes. You stop asking, how can I earn more? And start asking, how can my money earn more for me? That is the question that builds wealth. Start small if you need to. Maybe your first vending machine is a small side business. Maybe it's a modest investment property. Maybe it's a fractional ownership in something. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you start, that you take your first dollar of capital and put it to work somewhere that generates a return rather than letting it sit idle in an account where it quietly loses value day by day. Because here's the truth, time is going to pass regardless. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, time will have passed. The question is whether that time worked for you or against you. Whether your money was out there multiplying on your behalf or sitting quietly in a savings account, slowly being eroded by inflation. Every day you delay is a day your money isn't working. And money that isn't working is money that's slowly dying. The wealthy figured this out early. Some of them figured it out because they had mentors who taught them. Some figured it out through painful mistakes and hard lessons. But they all arrived at the same place. The understanding that financial freedom doesn't come from working harder. It comes from building systems that work for you. You can do the same. The information is out there. The opportunities exist. The tools are available. The only thing standing between where you are now and where you want to be is the decision to stop being the employee of your own money and start being the owner. Stop working for money, build the machine, and let your money do the work. If this gave you a new way of thinking about money, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on how to actually build your first income generating asset from scratch, that's exactly what we cover in the next video. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the first vending machine you want to build? I read every single one. See you in the next one.